Hello and welcome. Thank you for listening. My guest today is a Jill of all trades, an accomplished producer and creative executive. Now, full-time writer, actress, host, and comedian. She was born in Dubai, lived in Mumbai, was raised in Toronto, moved to New York, and now resides in Los Angeles. She brings a truly diverse perspective to all her projects. She wrote on the Netflix comedy Mr. Iglesias, which is actually one of my personal favorites, hosts her Kinda Dating podcast, and is pitching her own slate of scripted and unscripted series. She wrote, directed, and starred in 3 seasons of the comedy web series Mumbai Chopra Misadventures of an It Girl, about the socialite daughter of a spiritual guru that landed her a first look deal at Viacom. This is only a small portion of what she has done and continues to do, and I was so excited to get the opportunity to chat with her. Ladies and gentlemen, Natasha Chandel. DJ, roll that music. Awesome. Well, Natasha, again, thanks for being here and doing this. This is like our second attempt at getting you on this podcast.
Yeah, thank you so much for being patient with me. It's the story of my life with boys. No.
Well, I definitely want to touch on that, but I know that you're a jack of all trades. You're like the it girl. You do everything, it seems. I was actually just reading a little bit of your bio and current projects and everything, and oh my Lord, that's a lot. You're just busy all the time, I assume.
I am busy all the time, but the one thing is, I mean, I've done a lot of things in different chunks in life, which have probably sort of led me to here. But nowadays it's a very common term to say multi-hyphenate. It wasn't so common when I was doing it 10 years ago, where you would say, oh, I'm an actor, writer, and producer. And people would be like, no, so which one are you? And I'm like, no, I do all of it. And they're like, so which one do you like most? I'm like, why do I have to pick? That's such a weird thing. But now I think it's very, very common. But yes, I have lived many lives. You know, I was a TV producer who went into digital. I've been an actor, like everybody knows, a TV writer, but I was also a publicist for years. People don't know about. I keep that under wraps.
Whoa.
I, was a dancer and an instructor for an international dance company for almost 10 years. I've been, in improv. I've done a lot of things. It's like an overachieving Indian.
Oh, yeah. No, well, I mean, a lot of people tend to just want to sit around in their living room and not really do much after getting from their 8 to 5 job. But I think one of the funs, because I'm a creative person too, and I think part of the fun is actually getting a chance to do a little bit of everything. In fact, did you just hear about Ellen DeGeneres ending her show?
Yeah, I did.
And the reason why she stated?
That she said that she needed more of a challenge.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, do you constantly feel like you're in those same shoes where you enjoy what you're doing, but you reach a point where you kind of have to just do something else?
That's a great question. I would love to have Ellen money, so I don't know exactly how she feels, but yeah, definitely. I mean, I transitioned out of producing to full-time TV writing almost for that reason. I've always wanted to be a writer, but I was getting a lot of producing jobs, but I can produce something with my eyes closed without thinking about it. I have produced so many shows and so much content that I'm like, whatever, this is so second nature to me, that there isn't a lot of challenge in that. But TV writing, for example, really, really challenges me. I mean, even as a performer, I moved from, I'm a regular theatrical actor, but then I did improv for many years. And then when I did that, now I'm like, I want to do stand up. And now I feel very challenged in the writing and stand up world for my brain, which is what I need. So yeah, I think for all creative people, we are fueled by wanting to overcome some challenge, and usually the challenge is just our own brain. And I think that's what makes it exciting.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned TV and that you do TV, because you're not only an actress on TV, but you're also one of the writers for, I think, one of my favorite shows, Mr. Iglesias, on Netflix.
Yeah.
So talk to me about that experience.
I mean, it was a great experience. The comedy writing world can be tough, from what I hear from others. I did not have that kind of experience. I mean, Gabriel Iglesias, or Fluffy, is exactly what he seems like he is, which is he's a nice guy. He creates a supportive environment. Our showrunner, Kevin Hench. Oh, no.
Mm-hmm.
I'm very sorry about that. Did that come through?
No, there was just a brief pause. But
okay.
Yeah, I mean, I can
I'll just
cut it later, or
line.
Just leave it. Yep.
Yeah.
It's
sorry,
we'll do this as if it was live. So anything that happens, it's all good. It's this.
Okay.
This is one of the reasons why I love podcasting, just because it's at least the podcast that I do, it's so relaxing. I mean, heck, I'm sipping on a little bit of tequila right now.
Yes, I love that. Well, for people who don't know what just happened, my phone rang, and my phone is connected to my laptop, and then it all rang out. And anyways, so Kevin Hench is our showrunner on Iglesias, and he had a plaque in the room, which is work hard and be nice, and it really was the environment of the show. I had a blast. I think people who know me and saw my Instagram and pictures saw that I had a blast. The cast is amazing. Every single person, it was really just a good human. So we didn't have divas on the show or people with just bad personalities, which is very common. We just didn't have that. Even in the writer's room, it was just great. And I'm Indian American. I mean, well, not American even. I'm, Indian Canadian American. And to be welcomed on a show that is primarily Latinx, they never made me feel weird about it. And I was honored, to be part of the circle.
Oh, that's awesome. And I know with Fluffy at the helm, you must have had just so many great moments there. Is there a particular moment in your experience writing for the show that stands out to you that you're gonna carry in your heart forever?
I mean, I have so many, but he is such a great also improviser, and he really brings the words to life. Like, we can write words, and we definitely keep in mind that Gabe does voices and he loves to do impressions and things like that. But when you hear it and how he makes it his own is even better than what you have on paper. And then he'll take jokes and he'll constantly improvise. So we'll get new punchlines, and a lot of them are really good. So then we're like, okay, keep that one, which is like, he's doing our job. But I think one of my favorite moments, and don't even ask me why this is my favorite, but there's a scene in season 2 with Franco Escamilla, who comes on the show, and he walks in and he's singing a song to our Cree's character, and he's the dad, and he comes in and he starts singing, and I don't know, Gabe just did this funny song dance with it right at the end that we didn't plan, that they just came up with, and it was just so funny. And every time I watch that clip, I've always laughed over and over and over again. So that was, it's just that idea of like how they made it their own, and it was spontaneous. And nobody on the show is scared to be silly, which I love.
That's awesome. There's nothing better than working at a place that just wants to have fun all the time.
Very much. Yeah.
Yeah. But let's pivot a little bit more to another field that you're doing, because I'm actually talking to a fellow podcaster.
Mm-hmm.
Now, let's talk about your podcast. What is it called? What is it about?
So it's called Kinda Dating. It's a comedy dating podcast where cool guests and I will break down one dating topic per episode. And the joke is we try to figure out why we all have commitment issues. And it's called Kinda Dating because nobody says they're in a relationship anymore. Everybody's always like, I'm kind of dating this guy. I'm kind of dating this girl. And so I speak from the point of view of a hardcore relationship girl. I used to be in many long relationships. And then I went through an abusive relationship. And then I went the other way. And I was like, fine, can't beat them, join them. And then I became a massive commitment phobe for many years. And then after like lots of therapy and stuff, I finally came out of that. And I now call myself a reformed commitment phobe.
Wow.
But it's basically like I talk to people, and it's not a prescriptive podcast, which I'm very specific about. I'm not here to give you, a formula. I really dislike coaches and matchmakers and all this thing who push these formulas onto people, because life is not a formula, especially love. There is no formula to it. I know people who met somebody at a club and hooked up on their first night and are married with kids. I know people who dated somebody for 7 years and then that person ghosted them and disappeared on them forever. And you're like, what? So there isn't a formula, but I am somebody who's been through a lot, and I've been on both sides, especially the commitment phobic side. And so I share stories, and guests and I will explore a topic, I call it. And we've had huge comedians like Russell Peters on, and then we have, New York Times bestselling authors on, like Mark Manson. But then we have therapists. And then when we have the therapists, they give the advice. So follow their tips. But the rest is supposed to be sort of, you take from it what you need. And then we try to make it funny, because life is hard enough as it is. So my point is, I don't talk necessarily to, I don't know if I'm allowed to curse on this show, but the classic kind of fuckboy, I'm not talking to them. I'm talking to the person dating them, because most of us are actually intelligent. If you ask somebody, hey, are you smart or dumb? They'll always say smart. So it's like, if you're smart, then you knew better. And so most of us don't like to admit that we're dating that fuckboy because we have commitment issues, because we know it'll buy us time. It's not going to work out, and when you finally sort of admit those things, you can grow and evolve and really just invite a better life.
Wow. Now, there's a story in your bio about how you told your parents that you didn't want to date a brown boy. Talk about that experience and the horrid look on your parents' face when you told them that.
Yeah, I actually have a bit in my stand-up about this, which is true, that, when I was 15, I told my parents I didn't want to get married. I didn't want to be with an Indian guy. And I said that I was a lesbian. And I was playing the long game. And, by the time I was 18, my conservative Indian dad was like, okay, fine. But then no BMWs. And I was like, Dad, I don't want a douchey car. And he's like, no black, no Muslim, no white. I was like, whoa, where did that come from? Like, didn't even know that that's what BMW stood for. Then fast forward, when I was 25, he goes, okay, I mean, if they're black or they're white, it's okay. If they're Muslim, I'll kill you. And I'm like, all right, still being dramatic. Then like a few years ago, again, my conservative Indian dad came to me and said, if you fall in love with a Muslim man, okay, I probably won't talk to you again, but I want you to be happy. And some people call that growth, but I call that a broken man. Like, I broke that guy's spirit, and I did it so early that anything after that is winning. So what you say is I'm not going to be with the Indian guy. But my longest relationships have been with Indian guys. But it's a tactic. And it worked in my favor. So now they're like, anybody is good. Anybody, whoever, they have a heartbeat. Sure.
I love that. Well, what has been like because everybody that dates or goes on dates, they'll tell you stories that are crazy. Like I have a few too, but what has been your craziest dating story? And it can be even during that pandemic. A lot of crazy stuff happened during the pandemic in regards to dating. So is there a crazy dating story that you have?
I always joke that I'm probably somebody else's horror story. I mean, I've had one, but I just find this one funny that I know somebody out there is telling this story to people, which just makes me laugh. That my parents were Indian, and Indians have a J date, but for Indians, it's called shadi.com. So for years, my parents were telling me, let us make a profile for you on shadi.com, which just means marriage.com. And I said no. And I kept saying no. And for 2 years, they bugged me. And I finally was like, you know what? I don't care. Do what you want. I don't want to know about it. I don't give a shit. And I'm like, whatever. So they put a picture up of me. And in shadi.com, there is a thing that says it's a parent-run account. Because in Indian culture, it's so normal for fucking parents to be overbearing and over-involved in their children's lives. And so they had a parent-run account that I never saw, but they told me that they put me up and they got 3,200 matches in when they put it up. And so of that, they screened it down and they sent this one person to me. And I said, this person is definitely not my type. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with this. It was just not my type, which is the person was clearly obese. And I'm talking clinically obese. Mm-hmm. And my parents were saying, how do you know that? And I said, you can tell, but okay, fine. And they were like, who do you think you are? And I said, I agree, I'm nobody, but I'm just saying, I'm a very active kind of person, whatever, blah, blah, blah. He's a cardiologist. Mm-hmm. You need to go on a date with him. So we go on this date and my parents decide to come.
Whoa.
And I was like, this isn't how this works, guys. Uh-huh. And they go, yes, it is. He knows it's a parent-run account. He knows that. And I was like, yeah, but you initiated, that's it. Then you let us go on the date. This is not how it happens. They were like, yes, it is. So they argued. And because it's me and I'm a dick, I was like, sure, this will make a funny story. So they came. The poor guy was mortified. Was exactly what I said, which is clinically obese. Mm-hmm. And I was just like, guys, one, I was correct. Two, did I not tell you that this guy would be freaked out that there are parents here? And he was, poor guy. And then at the end, he texted me. He was like, I mean, I had a really good time. I'd really love to see you again. But I have never been out where somebody's parents showed up. And I showed them the message and I laughed. And I was like, guess who won again? And they were literally like, oh my God, we're never. And I literally was like, you're never doing this again. And they're like, yeah, you're right, we're not. And I was like, cool. So it's just sometimes you gotta let parents screw themselves over, they're just so overbearing sometimes. I'm like, you're wrong. You're clearly wrong, but fine. Just let yourself see how wrong you are.
Oh man.
So I'm definitely somebody else's horror story. I'm sure he's telling people that story.
Oh, that is hilarious. Yeah, it's just that's the crazy about these dating apps. I don't know of anybody, at least in my circle of friends, that has had anything good to say or come out of these dating apps. So I don't know. Maybe there's somebody out there. I don't know.
I'll tell you, I met my boyfriend now on a dating app just before the pandemic. And it's I am what I tell people, like, I'm not a big dating app person myself because it's just honestly not my personality. And we say it's a bit of a miracle that he and I got together because of exactly what you and I started with, which is the patience. I don't have notifications on my phone. So I've only maybe gone on less than 10 dates from a dating app. Like I'm so picky in general. And then who would I actually go out to meet? Everybody I've ever dated, I met in real life. But then, I had taken a year off of dating before the pandemic by choice. And then was finally like, all right, I'm ready to come back in. And so I like really tailored my Hinge. And I talk about in the podcast that I paid for a 3-month thing just because I didn't want anybody wasting my time anymore, especially with things that were important to me. Like I don't judge anybody if they want to do hard drugs or something like that. It's literally not my lifestyle. So I don't want to have to deal with that. So I paid extra to be able to like set all the like pre-selections I wanted. And then he and I matched, but I didn't check my app for like 4 days. And so he messaged me and then I messaged him back like, hi. And then he messaged me and I didn't check again for like 4 days. But he was like, okay, well, can just like text me whenever you want kind of thing. And I was actually sick. I'm pretty sure I got COVID in the beginning last year. And so I was like, oh, shoot, I'm super sick. And when I finally got better, I texted him and I was like, hey, I'm really, really sorry. I was genuinely sick. And then he planned a date and I had to cancel that date because I was still sick. So when we finally met, I'm always like, my God, he was patient. Because other people would have thought I'm trying to be, or somebody's trying to be, like blow them off. But something I always tell daters is like, it's not about you. I promise you it's something the other person is going through. That could be they're dating somebody else. It could be they're sick. It could be they got hit with sudden work. It could be they have to travel out of state suddenly. It could be millions of things, but we take it so personally. And you just got to remember that person, your potential whoever, the person you matched with doesn't know you. So they don't owe you anything. Like they don't have any attachment to you to feel like they need to message you. So they just fucking disappear. And I'm like, don't take it personally. If my boyfriend took it personally, we would never be together. And he was like, okay, she'll reach out whenever she wants. And then I did. Because I was like, oh, the guy didn't get like upset. And oh yeah, like he's been polite and messaged me a few times. Like I'm actually sick. I should let him know. And so I did. But and we got lucky. We met just before the pandemic. And so, we just had our 1-year anniversary.
Wow.
I know.
Congratulations.
But thanks. I know. It's like, wow, that for me, it's like, I didn't do long weekends with somebody. So, there are success stories on apps. I think people have to, it's not easy. I'm not saying like the app life is easy. But I think people can be a little bit more picky. I mean, whenever I see my girlfriends, they swipe on everybody. I'm like, did you even look? Did you look? And then they're like, here's a fun fact. I've never gotten a dick pic. And it kind of upsets me because I'm like, why has nobody ever sent me a dick pic? But at the same time, I think it's because I select people that would not look like they would send a dick pic. And then like my friends, I'm like, I know we say like, let's not judge people, but like literally all an app gives you is somebody's fucking face, judge them. And if they look like a douchebag, they're probably a douchebag. So, if somebody's mean mugging in a Bumble profile, they probably have really low self-esteem and are going to try to get you to, they'll try to sext you and get you to do dumb things that you probably don't want to do with a stranger. And then when I call it out, because like I remember one of my girlfriends showed me this guy once and I was like, he looks like he's going to send you a dick pic. And she goes, no, he's not. He's been really nice. And I'm like, he looks like that guy. And then she hit me up and she goes, oh my God, he sent me a dick pic. I'm like, I told you, he looks like the guy who would do that.
Wow. It sounds like you're in tune with people's like aura, for example, that you know how they are. You just kind of get that.
People by their face. I mean, literally, we don't need auras off of this. It's like, if they're giving you, okay, here's the thing. If somebody's, for guys or girls, if somebody's just giving you their face, there's a reason for that. They're either not confident with their body. So there's something, you know, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with their body, just they're not confident with it. If somebody's giving you side profiles, there's probably something wrong with the front of their face. If somebody's giving you like, you know, everybody, if they have no words in their profile, I find that to be so disrespectful. I would never go out with a guy who didn't write anything on a profile because he thinks he's that fucking good. Like, get out of here. Like, no. You know, so that to me is like, okay, that person has, you know, thinks that they're better than others because they don't even owe anybody the time to write a few words for them. Like, they feel entitled. You can tell, you know, if, or they have bad grammar, which is a deal breaker for me. So I'm like, you know, if you can't spell in your dating profile, like there's 3 sentences, if you can't handle that, like, no, you know? And so it's like, we don't use our judgment enough. And I think judgment has a bad connotation. Everybody goes, oh, I don't judge. I'm like, everybody judges somebody. Like, don't fucking lie to us. Like, I judge everybody. I openly say I judge you. I totally do, because you're judging me. That's life. It's called discernment. It's why I don't walk out in the street with cars driving by, because I've used my judgment that if I walk out, the car's gonna hit me, I'll die.
Yeah, exactly.
Sorry, that was my rant.
No, that's excellent. No, that's awesome advice. You know, I kind of never thought twice about the different types of photos that you see on people's profile.
If it's like a pixelated picture, they either have a shitty phone, which means that they're probably older than their picture says. You know, like there's something that's always like, be a detective about it.
Exactly. Or like I've seen some people that use their baby pics as their profile photo.
Yeah, like that's fucked up. That's just saying that was the cutest I ever was in my life.
Oh yeah.
You know, like, what do you?
Yeah. Oh man. No, I every single thing you're saying is true.
It's just stuff nobody wants to say out loud. And I'm like, all right, I'm not saying it's not about even being PC or not. It's just reality. I'm like, come on. Like, you don't walk home with a stranger, right? Because you're told to use your judgment. So like, why is this any different?
Exactly.
You're going to have their body part inside your body potentially. Like, don't you want to be sure that they're not some psycho? I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I'm glad that we're talking about all this, because this is just a glimpse of what your podcast is, and I think people should go and subscribe to it.
Please, yeah. I mean, definitely, it's definitely different for sure than other dating podcasts. I am pretty. I'm a real talk kind of person. I think.
There you go. Well, real talk is the best policy in my book. And is that one of the reasons why you like podcasting, just to have that freedom?
You know, now, yes. When I started in podcasting, I didn't really know. I just wanted to have a medium where I was just get to share my voice and like my opinions. I really didn't think anybody was going to listen to Kinda Dating, you know, let alone it falling under a category of, you know, some of the top dating podcasts. And I'm like, wow. But yeah, like I've been very conscious to not do the stuff I don't like hearing. which is I don't like being told what to do, so I don't tell other people what to do. I don't like people chaining us in formulas, so I don't give people formulas. I like when somebody's talking with me, not at me, and a big thing for me was also, I don't like the term dating expert. People call me that now. I just smile and nod because that's how people categorize and label you, I guess, and that helps them. But I just call myself experienced, and I don't like the idea that anybody's like some expert. I'm like, how? What are you an expert on? And in dating, I'm like, are you kidding me? It's like, it's all interpersonal relationships, and a lot of people out there, I'm not shitting on others in that sense, but a lot of people don't have a lot of experience, and they really give bad advice, especially the ones that are coaches and matchmakers. And, they make you feel like if you haven't met somebody, there's something wrong with you. And that is the antithesis of what Kind of Dating is about. Kind of Dating is, it's almost like a personal growth podcast that has to do with dating, which is, the idea is, our goal is that if you meet somebody, great. If you don't meet somebody, you should also be great. Because the truth is, we don't control fate. We're not God. And so I can't guarantee you doing these things is going to make you find the love of your life. But it will make you happier in the process, because you're going to feel comfortable being in your own skin. And that's half the battle. Half the battle is meeting somebody who's right for you, is knowing you. And then being able to voice what that is and saying, this works in my life, this doesn't work in my life. And I've only learned that through years and years of therapy and dating every combination of guy known to man. And now I'm at a place where, I love my boyfriend beyond words. That said, he and I always talk about it, where if we broke up, it would fucking suck for a few days, but I would be fine. And he would be fine. And that's all you can ask of in life, because we don't control, like, life is always going to go up and down. You can't guarantee anything, but we can try to get ourselves in a mental space that we are just being our best self. Even if you go down, it's okay. We all dip, but it's like, how can we get out of there faster than staying in there for a rut for years?
Exactly. Are you the glass is half full or half empty kind of girl?
Oh, I'm definitely probably a half full.
Yeah. I find that it depends on how you look at life, that is able to get you out of any funk that you're in on any given day. I've experienced that. Millions of people experience that every day. Billions. Every single person it goes through, like you said, through their ups and downs. But how do they get out of that as fast as they can? And so I just found that for myself in particular, just seeing life in seeing the silver lining, seeing the positivity of that experience kind of gets me out quicker than anything else. And a lot of that kind of was experienced during the pandemic, because there's just so many challenges. I mean, there was like I wouldn't say a month, like maybe 3 weeks that I just was afraid to even step foot outside my house. What was your biggest challenge during this pandemic that you thought you'd never have to go through?
Can I be completely honest with you? I was pretty chill during this pandemic. But I think it's because, one, I'm an introvert, so any excuse to sit at home and be alone, I'm like, great, this is awesome. Because, my life is so busy, and I'm taking Drake meetings and just networking meetings 4 or 5 days a week, doing the podcast, doing auditions, everything. It was a lot. And so when it finally slowed down, I was like, this is nice. But I'm very, and because so I have battled anxiety and depression my whole life. And, this is something we talk about a lot on the podcast, which is one of the reasons I understand. I'm like, I'm not here telling you don't have feelings, because some people are just like, be positive. I hate that shit. I'm like, no, it's completely okay to feel down. Like when last year's George Floyd thing happened, for that month, I was gutted, it's like, you're just, all the feelings are coming out. So acting like we won't get down is not a healthy place to be. You have to honor all your feelings. How to get out of that state sometimes is just letting it be also. If you can't force it out. I just had a friend tell me he was not feeling good for a week. He's like, I can't do anything, Tasha. And I said, don't do anything. Just let it be. And I promise you, it'll just weaken in time, whenever that is. And then I hit him up just a few days ago, and he said, yeah, you were completely right. Like when I just let it go, like let it be, it just went away. And I said, yeah, because it's Eckhart Tolle is a great kind of spiritual teacher. And he says, like, what you resist persists. And so I've only come to this place after doing so much work. I used to have Lyme disease for 7 years undiagnosed that a lot of people don't know about. I was very, very ill. So to me, whenever everybody's like, oh, how come you have so much energy and all this thing about life? I'm like, because I'm breathing and I'm functioning and I can stand and I can do things, and that's a blessing. So even when the pandemic happened, I think I just very quickly went into acceptance mode instead of resisting it. I was like, there's nothing I can do about this. This is happening not just to me, it's happening to everybody. So I might as well use the time. So I wrote a lot. I finished 2 scripts. I finished another, a beat sheet of a feature. I have a new podcast, the second podcast that I'm developing coming out. It was a very busy time for me because I just decided to accept it and find the positive in that. That doesn't, again, mean that I never had down days. It just means that I was like, okay.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that you do that always brings a smile to my face is just your Instagram reels and videos that you post of you dancing or doing other things. Do you consider yourself a big social media person, an influencer?
It's funny, I don't, but other people keep saying that I'm like some social media expert. I'm like, am I? Okay. I think I do well. I'm really not trying to be. I have a lot of interests, and I just like being silly, and I do silly things, and then I post it. And, last year I did ask people, some of the people who engage with me the most, and just trying to understand, I was like, oh, why do you follow me? Like, why? I don't get it exactly, because I don't see myself the way others see me. And a lot of what they said was I kept bringing a smile to their face. And I was like, oh, okay. And it shows you that that's needed in the world, And I think I can only do that. It helps me, but it also is just because, like, I've been able to work through a lot of the things that you and I just spoke about. Abusive relationship. I've had Lyme disease. I got hit by a dump truck on the highway, like a rear-ended, and had a head injury for 2.5 years. I've, grown up in a home with domestic abuse and lost my jobs and lost all my money. And I'm like, I'd rather just smile, because I don't know what else gets anybody through it.
Exactly. Well, and you're still standing.
Yeah.
And in the end, and that's huge. That's really important. When you go through all of these things, and in the end, you're still standing. You look at the world in a different light. back in my 20s, I was so relaxed about things. And, like when you're young, you think you're invincible and everything. And then, there's been experiences. Like, for example, I was in a rollover crash. I was working as a news
Oh my
photographer.
gosh.
And the reporter and myself, we were driving in this life truck, and these things, they can be pretty top heavy because of the mass they have in the back and everything. But we were being kind of run down all over the place, and what I didn't know at the time, later I found out, was that the station actually had installed a spare tire on that life truck that was supposed to go to the shop and get that sorted out and put a new tire in there, but they just never did when they sent us on this assignment. So on the way back, that tire, one of the rear tires, just basically disintegrated. And because the van was so top heavy, it was easy to lose control. And all of a sudden, I rolled over. It wasn't until later a good Samaritan that came on the scene told me, "Yeah, your van kind of just flipped multiple times and even went up in the air." And by the grace of God, my reporter and I were not severely injured. We were able to get out of there safely, and I had a minor cut, which has, it healed in a few days, and nothing too serious, no broken bones or anything. It was just a huge miracle. And after that, I saw life in a whole different light because of that experience. And so I think that if you're somebody that goes through these things, but here's the other thing though, like you have to be able to be open to learning from that experience. Like there's some people that they just, they keep doing the same thing and going through the same experiences and not learning anything from it. But if you open yourself to that, to those experiences, that you really start seeing life in a whole different light. And I think part of what you've gone through has really molded you into the person that you are today. And I think through your art, you're helping a lot of people. And I think that's a great thing.
Thank you. That really means a lot. And I'm so glad that you were safe, because that's scary. But yeah, it is true. I mean, I don't know if you've asked yourself why you could push on after, because I know a lot of people who might have gone through the things we've gone through and would just be broken by it. And again, it's not like like I said, I've suffered depression through my life. So it hurts me a lot. And when something happens, and, when I was in the abusive relationship, I was depressed for almost 2 years. I could barely feel anything. But I was so like, I don't want to live life like this. Like I was very determined that situation and that person wasn't going to ruin the rest of my life. And so I spent a lot of years in therapy coming out of that. And again, I know a lot of friends who go to therapy, but they never learn anything from it. I'm like, if my therapist gave me homework, I did it. I was like, okay, because this is for me. It's not, I'm like, why am I paying you so much money all the time? I better get something out of it. And then now I have this toolkit where I still, again, am human. Last week I had a fucking anxiety breakdown from being overwhelmed, but I got out of it in like a day, where, younger me, old me might have been stuck in that for a week or more. So when you build the tools to make better decisions in your life, it really changes everything, and it gives you some agency over your life, that it's not just these things happening to you, that you have some control over how you react to it.
And it kind of comes back to what we're talking about with social media. I have Facebook page, Twitter, and Instagram, but I use all of those platforms differently. Like I'm really just into Instagram because, I do work for a news organization that constantly churns out news, and a lot of it is not really positive news. And I have to, share stories, and I choose to use Facebook and Twitter to share those stories. But on my Instagram, there was a time when I was first starting out, and I thought, okay, maybe I'll do Instagram as, I'll put some news stories up there and stuff. And then I realized, you know what, I don't want that. I just don't.
Yeah.
When I want to go into Instagram, I want to have a laugh. I want to smile. I want to see something that just completely takes me out of what I just experienced looking at this news or working on this story. And so on my Instagram, you'll see a lot of what I'm passionate about, which actually turns out to be a lot of food pictures. But I love
so
I love cooking. I love mixing drinks, and I love going to places, to restaurants, and especially supporting mom and pop shops. But I love going to restaurants that are within the reach of anybody. I don't do these 5-star crazy restaurants where each plate is $100 or more.
Agreed.
I don't do that. I like the simplicity yet delicious aspect of food, but that's also within reach to anybody, whether you're living in South LA or you're living in Beverly Hills. It appeals to everybody, and so that to me makes me smile. But there's other content creators like yourself that take a different approach, and it works. It works because you are sharing something that you're passionate about. But I did want to ask you, just regarding social media, what do you like about social media, and what do you see is a problem with social media?
So many problems. What do I like about social media is the question.
Yeah.
What I like is that we can connect to new people and learn new things that we've never been able to before. I think things like, for example, let's say TikTok, right? As silly as it can be, there's a lot of information and things on there. I mean, there's, it's not just all little dance videos. There are people who do Finlit on there, or they do, you have dermatologists and you have people teaching you things. And there's an element of that that's amazing. Being able to obviously connect as a creator to people that you would never have met. You and I met on social media. That's beautiful. And also just like from a social justice standpoint, when we think about somebody like George Floyd, that justice would not have occurred were it not for somebody posting a video and that video being circulated on social media, that it, rallied the entire world. On the flip side of it, there's two things. Obviously, misinformation is a huge problem. But what I will say is that's not just a social media thing, that's a media thing. And it falls on us as the consumer. And I advocate for media literacy all the time, that we should be teaching in schools, if they're not already, how to analyze media. So you and I come from a news background. Like I also have a news background. So for me, it's like, I never take my news from one source. I always corroborate a story with 3. And that's how I know it's a real story. And sometimes I'll look at an opposing point of view because I want to see how they've written the same story, because then I go somewhere in the middle of that is the truth. And people are so lazy, they don't want to do that, but they'll easily retweet and circulate information that feeds their worldview, but they won't corroborate it. And so media literacy is a huge thing for me. And then, on a dating front, social media is hard on relationships. It's a whole nother level, where, I've been in those relationships where you don't totally trust the person. And so you're looking at everything that they're doing, and it opens up, who's sliding in whose DMs. You have no idea.
Yeah.
So there's definitely this it's kind of it's a zoo.
Yeah.
But everybody's uncaged and wild.
Exactly.
But I think there's good things to take from it. So I think we just have to use social media. We have to use it, not have it use us. So for me, I am on social media. You'd be surprised. I'm not on it as much as people think I am. I just plan things well, where I'll shoot a bunch of stuff and then I'll post it, and then, I spread out all my posts. So it seems like I have a lot more. But I post and then I walk away. I usually don't flip through a lot. I mostly use it for news. I go on Twitter for news and Google News, and that's the kind of stuff I use. So you just have to find balance with everything in life, including this tool that gives you access to much more than we normally would have.
Yeah, exactly. Sometimes I have to think about other countries that may not have that luxury of being able to, go online and look at fake news or whatever, because their social media platforms are banned. And so I always look at it that way, or at least I come from that angle where we are lucky that we have access to that. But you're totally right when you say we have to be able to know how to use it and not have it used us. And I don't think everybody has figured that out yet. Everybody that actually, I have friends that they constantly keep checking their Instagram to see if there's any new likes that they've gotten on something they posted. And it's like, all right, well, I mean, here I'm right here talking to you. Hello, can you put your phone away?
Yeah.
And so I made that my challenge. In fact, Chick-fil-A was doing a promotion a few years ago. I don't know if they're still doing it, but I thought it was pretty cool, where you could take your family and they give you a little box, and everybody has to put their cell phones in there. And it's not like the cashier person takes it or whatever. You just leave it on your table, and every now and then they kind of pass. And if you manage to not touch your phone, just leave it in that little box for the entire meal, you get free ice cream cones. Wow. And I love ice cream. So that was a great challenge.
I have to admit that would be hard for me.
Yeah.
As much as I'm I try not to be obsessed with it. I always have my phone in my hand. It's so hard.
Yeah, exactly. Have you ever accidentally, in quotes, forget your phone and in just
die.
Yeah, I think a lot. Yeah, definitely. I share that sentiment, but only because for me, I do have important information that I don't want to lose on my phone, especially pictures. And I know that some of those get uploaded to a cloud and stuff if you haven't set up like that. But still, it would just be a little devastating for those types of memories to be gone in the blink of an eye because somebody decides to take it. But there's a lot of good people in the world too. Just a few days ago, I dropped my wallet. I couldn't find it, and all of a sudden, like, this guy comes running up behind me and says, "Hey, is this your wallet? I think you dropped it. I don't know if it's your wallet or not." And I said, "Oh no, that is mine. Thank you."
Oh, that's so good. I love that.
Yeah, yeah, and in Los Angeles, nonetheless.
I know. I love that. There are good people. We just have to see it.
Exactly. Yeah, I want to believe in the good nature of people. It's there, and I want to believe that everybody's good, but obviously, working in news, that's sometimes a little hard. Yeah, exactly. But oh well. But something cool though that I found out about you was that you were on the number 46 on the list of 50 coolest South Asians of 2020. Tell me about that. What was going through your mind when you saw that list, and how did you find out that you were going to be on this list?
They sent me an email, and I was like, "What?" Like, why am I on this list? And, a lot of people were like, "Are you kidding me? You're cool." I was like, "I am cool." I don't see myself, like I said, the way others do. it was amazing. It was a great honor. Just being on the list with some people I admire so much. Obviously, Kamala Harris, Riz Ahmed, Camille Nanjiani, these amazing entrepreneurs and leading people in science. I really didn't feel deserving, but I took it graciously, accepted it.
Well, yeah, so that's pretty cool. I wish I was on a list somewhere just to be on the list, any list.
You're on my list.
Oh, well, thank you.
Yeah.
Now, you've been in different cities. You've lived in big cities, Mumbai, New York City, LA. In all these major cities that you've been staying in or that you've lived in, what are some of the differences that you've noticed between them and some of the similarities? What do we share in common?
Everyone's fucked up.
Yeah.
Everyone is fucked up. Everybody tells me, especially in the dating world, because they'll always say like, oh, dating in my city is the hardest. And it's always like insert city. And somebody will say, oh, dating in New York is the hardest because there's no monogamy. And then somebody will say, dating in buckfuck nowhere is so hard because there's only 8,000 people in my town. And I'm like, it's all like, clearly the experience is hard for people everywhere. So that's not a thing. I mean, at the core, everybody's just a person all over the world. There are obviously cultural differences anywhere. I was born in Dubai. It's a very opulent kind of place. Mumbai is very earthy, but now it's like a big city. It's like New York on crack. No, really, like take New York times 100 is Bombay for you. And so, not only is it fast, but it's a huge city. And in terms of dating, it's like New York is tough because there isn't a lot of monogamy. LA is tough because everybody says like, it's too many pretty people. It's really the same everywhere. I just feel like the only things I would say is it's like communication styles. Maybe in New York, you're a lot more direct. In LA, there's still a lot of fruity language that goes around to tell somebody this isn't working out. Yeah. Toronto is a little bit more upfront, but I haven't been there in so long now that I or dated there in so long that I can't really speak on it. But yeah, it's not as different as people think.
Is there one of those places that really holds a special place in your heart?
No, I mean, it's like picking children, but
oh, I can pick children.
I mean, there is always a favorite. I know I'm my dad's favorite. So I would say, I think New York just always holds a special place because that was my first chosen home. And, I became more of myself there and developed more of my personality there. And yeah, so my best friends are still there. It's a different type of home for me, I think, than any place. But conversely, when I go back to India, like, man, that's home, where for once I can walk around and everybody is speaking the same language as me. I'm like, wow, I know what everybody's saying. And there's just a nice feeling of belonging. But I would say New York.
Yeah.
I hope my Toronto friends don't hate me for that. But.
No, I mean, I gosh, that's probably the best response to that question that I think I've ever heard, because you are totally right. When you experience a huge milestone in life, that wherever you are, whatever you're doing, that's always going to be memorable, no matter what you do later in life. It's like your first, the first time you drove, the first time you had sugar.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's
first time you had sex.
Exactly.
No,
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and New York for me was like I went there, with 2 bags of clothes on a bus with no job, no visa, nowhere to stay. So I called up my girlfriend. I was like, "Can I crash on your couch? I'm coming to New York." And she's amazing, and she let me. But I really came with nothing, and really grew there. I've gone through so many real shit experiences in New York, but there's something about it that's like amazing when I look back to go, wow, I overcame all of that stuff and then had all these amazing fun experiences there too.
Yeah. Wow. No, man, you're a huge risk taker. I like that. Not a lot of people are capable of doing what you did, of just going and not only that, but going to one of the biggest cities in the world, New York City, by yourself and being out there to the elements without anything in your pockets to really help you out.
Yeah.
Geez, I just
yeah, I mean, it's also like it was a different country because I came from Canada, but because of the Lyme disease stuff, like there was a point that they thought I had a rare brain disease that had no cure. And so like when they finally said that it wasn't that, I just turned to my parents. I was like, I'm going. And, not normal for Indian parents to let their daughter go off like that either, which I think is the big part of the story, that my friends are always like, how the fuck did you do it? And I never had financial support, which is another part people don't know. Like even my girlfriends from back home didn't find out until recently. They're like, wait, you didn't have any money? And I was like, no, my parents never gave me money. I didn't have help. So I had whatever I had saved as like a teenager and, doing my Pizza Hut and working these random jobs. And I had no visa and I just went there and I figured it all out eventually, So yeah, it's literally like coming up from nothing.
Wow. Just, incredible story. And I could just talk to you for hours. I really enjoyed listening to all of your stories and life experiences. But as we wrap this up, is there something that I didn't ask that maybe you'd like to either say, talk about, get off your chest, tell people that are listening?
I just know you were great. This was such a great interview. You asked everything. You did your research.
I normally don't. I'm just kidding. No, that's one of the things about this podcast is that it's totally unscripted. I don't know what we're going to be talking about. I don't know where the conversation's going to go. I every now and then I do have bullet points. In this case, I did have some bullet points because when I was just reading up on you just to see what you did, it was like you've done so many things and experienced so many things that I was so curious that my brain kind of goes 100 miles per hour and I didn't want to lose any thoughts. So I just kind of had to write some bullet points down. But I normally don't have any questions at all written down or anything like that. I just,
wow.
It's just off the cuff, whatever we talk about.
Amazing.
Oh, really? No, I don't know.
No, it is. I feel like I have such a bad memory. I can't remember shit unless every single thing is written down. I literally write on a morning list. I go, wake up. I'm like, wake up, shower. Like I'm going to forget that, but I just write it. I'm like, just get it out of my head, wake up. Yeah.
Well, listen, what are some of the projects that you're currently working on? And also, where can people find you or connect with you on social media?
Thanks. So there are a couple shows in development. So hopefully you'll hear more about that soon. And I'm developing a graphic novel and an animated show. So it's cool. And then if you guys want to follow me, I am at Natasha Chandel on Instagram, Natasha.Chandel on TikTok, Natasha_Chandel on Twitter, and Natasha Chandel Official on Facebook. I always joke that I'm super complicated. But if you would just like everything on me, it's natashachandel.com. And
Awesome.
Kinda Dating. Please subscribe to Kinda Dating wherever you get your podcasts.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, everybody that's listening right now, go and check out her podcast and subscribe to it. All right. Natasha, thank you so much for being on this podcast and talking to me. It was such a huge pleasure. I just love talking to you.
Thank you. It's a really great time. Thank you for having me.
I want to thank Natasha again for sharing her insightful experiences and life stories. I could just keep talking to her for hours, so maybe we can just get her back for another episode. Don't forget to subscribe to her podcast, Kinda Dating, playing on Apple Podcast and Spotify, and connect with Natasha on social media. The links are in the description to this episode. I've also included a link to my YouTube channel for additional content in the description. If you have any comments or questions regarding this episode or the podcast in general, send them to hangrymexicanpodcast@gmail.com. I would love to feature some of your comments on a later episode. And please rate the Hangry Mexican Podcast on Apple Podcast and all other major platforms we are streaming on. The more you rate, the more ears this podcast will reach. I really do appreciate your support. Thank you for listening, and until next time, stay safe, good night, good luck.